Welcome to your Dogcast, where we feature news just for dog lovers. Here's your Rover Reporter, Mary Lou Davidson.
So, welcome back to the Rover Reporter. We have a very exciting episode today. Jennifer S. Holland is joining us, and she's the author of Dog Smart, the life-changing lessons in canine intelligence. Jennifer is uniquely positioned to write this book because she has a BA in English and a Master's of Science in Conservation Biology. Thank you for joining us, Jennifer.
Thank you. It's great to be here.
You know, I just loved your book. There's so much happening in this area surrounding dog intelligence and the study of behavior. You got to travel around the country and visit like canine cognition labs and agility trials and search and rescue training. That's a dream job for a lot of us.
Yeah.
So how did you put that all together?
I have to say, it's amazing that it came together because this was all during the pandemic that I was trying to do this. And I had, sort of big plans in the beginning. Remarkably, the, amazing people out there who work with dogs and, dog people are the best people. I think we can.
Of course.
And people were willing to make it work. And so I was still able to do most of the things that I had intended to do right in the beginning. But I just started reaching out. I knew I wanted to get out there with working dogs because I figured if you want to see intelligence, you need to see dogs that have been given all the opportunities, to kind of use all of their smarts in different ways. And I was just amazed at how many different ways dogs are trained to do, so many incredible things. Some things I knew about, most of them, but then there were, some interesting conservation stories about, and dogs going out and sniffing for the fungus that's taking over on a winery and dogs that are, out there helping Alzheimer's patients now. And of course, the ones that smell diseases and all the search and rescue. And it's remarkable just the breadth of the things that dogs are capable of and willing to do for us.
The line, "We don't deserve dogs." It's like they're the best of all possible qualities in one little being. One of the really surprising nuggets in your book was about the fact that there are 1 billion dogs in the world and 85% are free roaming.
I was shocked. Yeah.
Yeah. And so it sort of speaks to the common, all dogs are different, right? They're all unique, but the common thread is adaptability. And so you told a story about beach dogs when you were on vacation. Can you share that with us?
Am I allowed to say the dog's name?
Please.
We met this wonderful dog on a beach in Costa Rica. My husband and I were eloping while we were there, and we had a day on a beach by ourselves, and there were 3 just kind of wandering, scruffy, filthy, scrappy dogs wandering around on the beach. And it was interesting because one of them was interested in us. The other 2 were completely disinterested and just were focused on the garbage and, rolling around. But this one just kind of was checking us out, and we ended up befriending this dog over the course of just, a very short time. We called him Mr. Ball Dangles. He was unfixed and proud of it, and that became our little joke. But it was just really interesting because I had been thinking a bit about dog behavior and how dogs came to be what they are. And in this, this moment of meeting these different dogs, I kind of got a sense of, well, Mr. Ball Dangles was the dog that would have been kind of that proto dog that was a little more tolerant of the people, that was interested in the people, and that realized that, hey, if I get close to those other creatures over there, I might get a little snack, ultimately a little petting. And it was just kind of a neat thing to think about, just seeing that history kind of playing out right there in front of us.
Right. The whole evolution of the human canine bond, right?
Yeah, exactly.
So you talk also a little bit, you get into the difference between dogs and wolves and how they go about problem solving,
Yeah.
which brings me to like there's a lot of crosstalk in the dog community about the whole fur baby culture, right?
Yes.
Everything
Yes.
we do for our dogs. And it really makes you wonder, am I really giving them the best quality of life, or should I let them make some of their own decisions
Right.
as much as you would let a dog do? So what do you think about that?
Yeah, that was something that I have thought a lot more about as well, just over the time of this project. I'm certainly guilty of, fur baby language and love and just adore dogs and want to hug and pet and, want them all to love me and all of that. Um, and I think there are plenty of dogs out there that are perfectly content with that. We've been selectively breeding them for these traits, and so a lot of dogs are comfortable with it, but there is also the idea that dogs are a different species. They experience the world differently. Things that are important to us and important to them may differ. And some of the things that we do make a lot of sense from our perspective, but if you try to think about it from the dog's perspective, it's like, well, is that really, is that the right thing? That's kind of a primate thing to do, like hugging your dog. Just some dogs don't really care for that very much, and we just don't, we don't think about or understand that because we forget that they're just coming from a completely different place and a different experience. And so have become a little more aware, I think, of the dogness in my pets, and trying to, when I can, let them have a little bit more of that, whether that means letting them use their noses more, not rushing them through, when they want to sniff or roll in something or whatever. Not assuming that they want my affection all the time if it's a kind of dog that doesn't care for that as much. And just, yeah, kind of being a little more considerate of them as a different being separate from me and from my family.
Yeah, after I read that section, it immediately changed how I walk my dog.
Okay.
And, rather than me leading and maybe having a phone conversation while I was walking, I let her kind of decide where we're going to make a turn or stop for, I think, somewhere in some manuscript I read about letting them sniff for about 20 seconds.
Hmm.
Was that in your book?
It wasn't, but that's
Okay.
good to know. Yeah, good
Yeah.
information.
So I'm not in, no one needs to be in that much of a rush when they're
Right.
walking their dog that they can't let the dog decide a little bit about what direction they're going to take.
Yeah.
Oh,
And giving them just a little bit of agency is so easy to do, and apparently makes a really big difference in their mood and how they, their confidence. They say it boosts optimism in dogs. I'm not quite sure how you measure that, but giving them time to sniff and giving them choices of, even the most basic things is just something that we can easily do for them.
yeah. What about giving them the agency or the license to be disobedient? Uh, for example, with a seeing eye dog, if you say go ahead and they know, how did you watch that unfold, or how was that to watch unfold?
And yeah, another thing I hadn't really ever considered is the idea that a working dog, like a seeing eye kind of dog, has to be so well trained to do the thing that they're being asked to do. And yet, almost as important, maybe more important, if they know something that you don't know, they need to know when it's okay to say no to that command. And, I don't think that applies quite as much in just sort of our general day to day, but certainly with assisted dogs of different sorts. They have to make that decision that this is the right time to disobey because my job is to protect this person, and I know, that there's a branch hanging down over here and that this direction isn't a good direction. Or, perhaps with like a dementia patient, if the person is confused and is trying to get the dog to do something, and the dog knows, my job is to make sure this person gets home and is protected and safe. they have to make that decision. And that was really remarkable to me, because that seems like a whole different level of thinking and choosing and really analyzing a situation, making decisions about it that make sense for the context.
Yeah, a whole consciousness that we can't imagine exists in their little canine heads.
Yeah. Yeah.
And there was a point too about this new sort of hazard for those kinds of dogs that have to be aware of EVs. And who would have thought of that?
Yeah. Yeah.
Um,
Exactly.
so, and another example of their adaptation that we see all the time. You know, your book is so rich and so full of information for dog lovers, but it's put together in such a way that we become engaged with the dogs that you're interacting with because you tell the story and it's so much more interesting. And I had to laugh kind of out loud when you were talking about a guy who was doing the evaluations. I think it was on like search and rescue dogs,
Mhm.
and you described him. And I felt like I was in that moment. I felt like I've met that guy. But, all in all, he was in the right to sort of disqualify that particular point because the owner was leading the dog. And I think we all tend to do that, which sort of goes back to our point about the fur baby culture and
Yeah.
letting your dog be a dog. Um, we talked a little bit about how you've changed after going through this voyage, really. I don't want to say journey because it seems like it's been like, how long did it take you to write the book?
It was pretty much a 3-year project, I would say, from start to handing in a draft.
Yeah. And I
Yeah.
can't imagine the copious notes. Um,
And I had a full-time job at the time, almost full-time job in addition. So it was my side project.
yeah. Yeah. So does one dog, sort of stick in your head? I think Cassie was one that you particularly bonded with
Um,
from your travels and investigations.
there's a dog who appears numerous times in the book, and I'll mention him. I actually just got to spend some time with him after about a year of not seeing him. His name is Odin, and he becomes kind of a narrative, a thread through the book. Where in the beginning, I'm just meeting him and taking some of the things I've been learning about how to read a dog better, how to be more aware of their body language and what they're trying to say. And it's about kind of how I navigate that introduction to him, and ultimately how we become very close, and he becomes in some ways kind of a rescue dog for me during a difficult time when my father was passing away, and this dog was in my life, and was a dog I turned to for affection and just that thing that dogs do for you. But he's just this was a dog that's not an immediate lover of all people, and it was a great experience to sort of use him as this experiment and test of my abilities and the new ways that I was thinking. And it's just very special to me as a result of that. And I hope that comes through in the book, because he's actually the only actual dog that I know who is on the cover of the book. So he's on the back cover, and he is in the top left corner, I believe. His name is Odin, and he's the one facing inward. Yes,
Not
that's
not the Yorkie.
no.
He's
So
gorgeous.
he got a special place on the book. So
Yeah. Yeah. So what would be, sort of a key takeaway that you would want readers to really feel they grasped from your book?
I think one important thing, I was just sort of touching on it, but the idea of really learning to read dogs better and to kind of speak their language in a sense. And we're not very good, really. We think we are, but we're not always very good about knowing what they're trying to tell us, even though they're giving us so much information all the time between body language, vocalizations, facial expressions, just their postures. Everything about them is is part of their language. And I think it's really important and helpful to spend more time observing that and to try to be a little bit more mindful, I think, and a little less making fewer assumptions about what we think they're trying to say and do, and really learn and get that information out of them so that we're responding in ways that make more sense. And avoiding bad situations, where a dog is uncomfortable and we're not responding well to that. There's just a lot of cases where I think learning the dog's language, instead of only just teaching them ours with our commands, is something really important to do.
Right. Just being able to sit and lay down and roll over. They're capable of so much more.
Yeah.
Just
Yeah.
giving them that leeway to be dogs
Exactly.
is
Exactly.
key. And so I'm sure this has changed your relationship with your dogs too.
Yeah, I have unusual dogs. I have a Korean Jindo, who is the dog in my author photo in the book, and then I have a Japanese dog called a Kai Ken, and they're very, very different in just kind of how they manage each other. They have an interesting relationship that I do go into in the book a bit, because again, it was kind of instructive for me to pay more attention to how they were relating to one another. And in the book, I say one of them plays checkers, the other plays chess. And the chess player is the one who's kind of figuring out how to avoid the bad moods, of the other dog. And he's a really, really smart dog, and he has some kind of clever ways of getting around bad situations and arguments with the other dog. So but I pay more attention to them. I'm definitely more giving on walks. I give them more time. The one likes to roll around in the grass, and I used to run over, oh, there's probably something smelly there. And now I just, just little things like that, just let it go. It doesn't really matter. And it makes him feel good. He's clearly has a reason for it. And so I'm just going to leave him be.
For them, smelly is just right.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Perfumes.
So you're a full-time writer now, but you've worked for National Geographic. Can we see Dog Smart as a Netflix series? Is that in the works? Can we
I
make
would love that. I know it's, there are a lot of shows kind of along those lines. And every time I see one, I think, darn it, this should have been Dog Smart. But, I think there's always room because they love dogs. There's so many great stories out there. Just, the book just has a selection of these, detection dogs doing incredible things, and emotional support dogs and search and rescue. You get just the flavor of all these different things that they're capable of if you train them properly and if they're given, the right opportunities.
Yes.
But yeah, I think if Netflix wants to call me up, I'm definitely interested in chatting.
Hello. So what's next on your roster? Will it be octopi or more dogs?
It's funny, octopus. That's one of my favorites as well. Of course, there's a wonderful writer out there who has done some lovely books on the octopus. But yeah, I don't know yet what it's going to be. I'm always kind of in the market and thinking about what's the next thing I want to dive into that fully. And I love being able to meld the personal stories with the science and the experts, and just kind of bringing all those pieces together. So I'm kind of keeping my eyes and ears out for something else that would work in that format.
Well, you've delivered such a wonderful gift to dog lovers. We express our appreciation and gratitude. And thanks for coming on the Rover Reporter.
Thank you. It's a lot of fun.
Okay, take care.
Take care.